Welcome to the Simplified Organization Podcast, where real moms chat about realistic home and life management. We want to avoid perfectionism, reject overwhelm, and handle our housework and home responsibilities in a way that builds relationships. Because our home is a tool, not a showpiece. Today I'm joined by my friend and team member, Stefani Mons. Stefani is a classically homeschooling mom of three, busy balancing homemade meals that her family requires due to autoimmune conditions, NCFCA speech and debate tournaments, and a whole lot of Latin. She is also the community manager inside Simply Convivial Continuing Education. Honestly, I could not run our private chat community Convivial Circle without her. This is part 2 of our conversation. And Stefani shares some things she's learned about living and getting organized with chronic illness. And I think it will be a great perspective and encouragement for you all. So what kind of time management or energy management strategies have you come up with for yourself?
Well, the first one, of course, is a brain dump. So always start with a brain dump so you can figure out where you have to prioritize because it's going to be different for everybody. So for me, I have to put a lot of time and energy into meals. Other people are going to have to put more time and energy into doctor's appointments. You know, it takes energy to leave the house and go to those doctor's appointments. We have to put energy towards school. So deciding how much we can give to that. And then even rest, like I sometimes feel like it's a chore to rest, but it's important, especially if you have a health condition, you have to be able to rest more, get enough sleep or take, some time in the middle of the day to rest. So you have to prioritize where you're going to put your energy. And if you don't have the energy for something that you want to prioritize, then you have to do something else. There has to be another option. We don't have a limitless supply of energy. So if you don't have the energy, I already mentioned, lowering your standards. And so another course of action would be to outsource, right? Get your husband on board, get your kids on board with cleaning, with meals, with errands. My daughter is learning how to drive. So I'm like, oh, all these people with older children, they send them out on errands. That's always an option.
It is very nice, I must say.
Not there yet, but to think outside the box. We think I have to do all these things. I've been doing all these things and now I can't do them anymore. So now you have to think outside the box and do something different. There's online grocery pickup, so you don't have to walk through the grocery store if that's tiring. I hate online grocery pickup. So I don't do it, but other people love it. And I can imagine first, depending on what you're trying to do, it could be, a great relief to not have to expend that energy with the grocery shopping. And then also buying something that's even really simple, like buying pre-chopped vegetables and pieces of meals that are already done. I know, I can't buy a lot of prepackaged foods, but it's like, you know what, I'm really tired. I'm just going to grab the bag of coleslaw and make a quick stir fry with it. I just dump in the bag. I don't have to chop the cabbage. I mean, not that chopping cabbage is that difficult, but to buy, you can buy pre-chopped onions in the freezer section. So there are things like that you can oh, I didn't even know there were pre-chopped onions in the freezer section. Of course, yeah. So when you start thinking about it and doing a brain dump, then you can figure out, okay, well, I can save energy here so that I can use it somewhere else. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when the food is such an important part of the energy management and all of that, to find out where you can make that a little bit simpler and baby step into it. Because I know sometimes it feels like you just get thrown in the deep end with figuring things out. And when my husband needed to go on an elimination diet, it was or the time where we decided we would try Whole30. We didn't make it 30 days, but it just felt like thoughts of food and food prep took up all my mental space.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that I do is I call it my forever meal plan. So you recommended doing a Google meal plan, and you would put it on for like 6 weeks at a time for the interval, but you would only plan for the interval. Well, I just made a 6-week plan and it just repeats every 6 weeks. It just goes on forever. It's on my calendar. It just keeps going in Google Calendar forever so that I don't have to think about it. And I themed my meals so that I know these days, these are what's happening. And it's kind of a similar prep, like with simplified dinners, you substitute things in. So it's kind of like simplified dinners, except it's set weekly. Like this week is this seasoning, next week is a different seasoning, but it's the same chicken thighs going into the slow cooker. So that gets that out of my head, and it's already pre-planned. It took me several months to build up to, at first it was a 4-week forever meal plan. Then I took another few months and I got to a 6-week forever. I'm now trying to build up to an 8-week forever, or try to sub in some ones that we're maybe getting tired of having some more options. But, it takes time when you can't have certain foods. You have to figure out, okay, so what's going to work here? So recipe testing is a project around here to work on the meal plan. But yeah, it takes a lot of mental energy to do it. So the more I can get that off my plate and just know this is what's happening, and now I don't have to think about it anymore, then that's been really helpful for me. I know some people, they get really jazzed about getting creative in the kitchen. And if that's your thing and it like energizes you to be in the kitchen, then more power to you. It drains me. I can't do it. Know thyself.
Yes. And no comparing with other people.
Exactly. All the people that can get in there and be creative, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Not going to try it. It's not in my wheelhouse. So.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we don't realize how many decisions go into the meal plan, and the more restrictions there are, I mean, obviously the more decisions and the more mental power it takes. And that really is, decision fatigue is real. And when you're making all those decisions and having all those concerns rattle around in your head, then that makes everything else harder.
Yeah. When COVID started and things were not available, I had to start taking my husband to the grocery store with me. I normally did my shopping on Wednesday afternoons. It was like a nice, relaxing event. And eventually it turned into me crying in the store aisles because things were out of stock and I couldn't substitute for anything, And so I was literally having to change the meal plan. And so eventually I had to take my husband with me, and I'd say, okay, well, they don't have this, so I can't do this, but this is what I have. So what should I do now? Like I needed somebody outside of my own self to help me. So it's better now. He still comes with me because now it's just what we do. But yeah, it took me to the brink of the mental energy and I couldn't take it anymore. And so, yeah, after like the second or third time of me crying in the aisles, I was like, I can't do this by myself and we're going to have to come with me. And he was like, okay. So I figured out my limitations at that point, and I enlisted help. See,
that's right.
Do.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I think that is going to help and reassure a lot of women who are like, okay, this is just normal. We're not trying to do it all. We are taking the resources that we have and trying to steward and manage them well in our particular situation.
Right. And to recognize the blessings of it too. It's no fun to have to basically be on an elimination diet for the rest of my life. But, my kids love eating vegetables. My daughter, one of her favorite vegetables is broccoli. My kids love sweet potato. They eat all sorts of crazy foods that are really healthy for them. And I think to myself, if I hadn't been pushed to do this, they'd probably still be liking the Kraft macaroni and cheese and rice-a-roni that I grew up with, but that we can't have anymore. But now they eat such nutritious foods and they enjoy them. So I'm like, you know what? Yes, it's hard, but at the same time, I've been able to teach my kids better habits than I would have been able to. And hopefully those habits stick with them for their life. So yeah. See the blessing.
Perspective. Yeah. Look for the gratitude.
Yes, it helps.
Yeah. So I think a great conclusion then would be to just encourage all of our listeners to do a brain dump on what decision fatigue management, whether it's time or energy or illness or whatever struggle that you're having, just sit down and do a brain dump. And if you need help figuring that out, we do have a free brain dump guide at Simply Convivial. And that is simplyconvivial.com/brain dump. And the link will be in the description. So you can grab that. And if you need more help with that, then Stefani does that kind of thing all the time in the community.
I do.
Stefani's it's okay. It'll work.
Yeah.
So the brain dump will help you get the thoughts that swirl down onto paper, where then you can manage your thoughts better and see the actual facts going on and separate those out from the decision fatigue and the worry. And it really is a very helpful process for just working through what's really going on. So that's simplyconvivial.com/brain dump for the free brain dump guide. And thank you, Stefani, for joining us for this episode of the Simplified Organization podcast.
Thank you.